Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our fourth Recycling Resilience webinar, Tagging and Enforcement. We are so glad to have you. We have a great lineup for you today. This webinar is brought to you by CRA and the North Carolina Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service. Say that 3 times fast. And I'd like to thank our Education and Outreach Committee of CRA, which has been instrumental in planning this webinar for us. If you are interested in getting involved in that committee or any others, please contact me, Mary McClellan with the Carolina Recycling Association. We would love to have you involved. We have some great opportunities for you, all types. I'd like to take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors, without which this would not be possible, and many other things that we do would not be possible. We appreciate them so much for their support, especially in these challenging times. Want to go over some housekeeping items with you guys related to the webinar. Y'all are muted. Y'all are in listen only mode. Because we know how recyclers like to talk, so we had to mute you. I'm sorry. And but you will have the opportunity to ask questions in the question box. This event is being recorded and it will be available to you after the webinar is over, hopefully within just a day or two. So when you want to ask questions, you can see here, you will have a question box on your panel. And just to get everybody warmed up, I would like you guys to put in the question box something for me so you can make sure it's working and so we can have a laugh. So everybody, I'd like you to put in, what is the #1 Halloween candy that you steal out of your kids' Halloween candy bag or bucket? And I'm going to read some of them if you guys send me some. And if you don't have kids, you know, what is your go-to? What do you buy the big bag of Halloween candy that you're hoping the trick-or-treaters won't take all of it so you can have some left? Send us your ideas. Send us your candy in your question box. No one likes candy. No one's sending anything in. They don't like candy, guys. Mine is Twix. If we get any coming in, I'll share it. We'll share them with you guys and we'll be able to see them. So please do put your questions and comments about the actual webinar in the chat box too. We do have a Reese's and a Snickers vote here, and any kind of chocolate. So that's good. All right, thanks guys. So our agenda today is right here. So after, in just a second, I'm gonna hand it over to Mike Green, who's our moderator and presenter. Then he's gonna do introductions of our panelists, and we'll have our presentations, and then we'll have our audience Q&A at the end. So with that, I'm going to give the floor to Mike Green. He is the Industrial Development Specialist for North Carolina DEQ. I hope you all had the pleasure of meeting him before, but if not, now is your chance. Mike, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'm going to hand it over to you. And I'm going to give you the mouse control too.
All right, Mary, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Mike Green, and I just noticed my blinds are hella dusty, so please pardon that. So we've got a great presentation for you today. This is actually the combination of 2 different sessions that we were looking at doing at CRA this year, one that I was doing and one that Tori was doing. We felt like there was a lot of demand for this information. So we wanted to take this chance to kind of squish it all together into one package and still get the information to you. So today we have some great speakers. I'll be leading things off in the not so great speaker category, and then we get to the great speakers, starting with Joe Fitzpatrick from Wake County. He's going to talk about the North Carolina Solid Waste Enforcement Officers Association. From there, we're going to move on to Hurst Renner from Rubicon, who's going to talk about using technology to help with your enforcement. From there, we're going to go to Molly Yeager from Rumpke. She's going to talk about tagging and contamination from a private hauler's perspective. And then we're going to round everything out with Tori from the city of Greensboro, who's going to talk about cart tagging from more of a local government perspective. All of the slides that you're going to see today will be available to you after the presentation, so you can take a copy home. We're also going to save all of our questions until the very end, and then we're going to bring everybody back and let you answer questions. So for right now, we're going to say goodbye to all the panelists, and they'll all be coming back as we go. So without further ado, all right, I'm just an ordinance. In my head, everybody's laughing right now, so we're going to hope that continued. I thought it was very interesting that not a lot of people realize how their local government works, so we wanted to do a little deeper dive into finding out how you can get an ordinance put on the books. So disclaimer, individual cities, towns, and counties may have different rules for establishing ordinances. What I'm going to talk about are kind of some of the more common procedures that we've seen around the state. I'm not a lawyer, so this is not official legal advice. I did talk with a lawyer from the NC League of Municipalities for a portion of this, so I had a little help. And mainly, I just wanted an excuse to put Joe Pesci in a presentation. So there. So where do we start? The direct route for getting contamination ordinances passed would be you going to your department or division head. From there, you would take what you have to your city or county attorney to let them either review the language or help you draft the ordinance. From there, it would typically go to a city or county manager who would take the issue up with mayor or city council. From there, the council could approve or refuse the ordinance. So if it doesn't work the first time around, you may have to go back several times and make some changes. If you hit a complete roadblock, there are different ways to try to get ordinances passed. If there's a local politician who is friendly to recycling, a local council member, if you weren't able to even get it past division or city manager, see if the local politician would be willing to help you push this into actuality. Private citizen groups. We've seen since we started the Recycle Right NC campaign, we've noticed how much the citizens of North Carolina are passionate about recycling and want to really get involved. I'm going to give a shout out to two different communities that took action themselves to help their recycling program, to get changes made that they needed or to save their recycling program. We had Caswell Beach that had a letter writing campaign by their citizens and HOAs for their recycling program. And Oak Island, North Carolina used a citizen group to save their program. So I'm really learning that we can utilize our citizen groups to help us reach the goals that we need with our recycling programs. So for your private groups, you could walk them through this. Basically, they would apply for a spot on the council's agenda. The procedures vary by location. Sometimes you call, sometimes you email, sometimes you have to go in person and sign up for a time slot. If you can have the private group meet with a recycling friendly council member, that always helps. Make sure that they've got handouts explaining everything they want done ready. and make sure that anyone involved is formed and ready to answer tough questions, especially when you get into rules and enforcement. The more information you're armed with, the better off you're going to be in getting your point across. So yeah, you may have to present several times. You may need to get additional community support. So that's where, news articles, social media can help you raise awareness for your cause. And you may need to compromise on different points of your enforcement program. So resources, we have copies of codes and ordinances that other towns, cities, and counties have passed in North Carolina. We can help you out with those. We are still working on trying to come up with like an ordinance enforcement template where you can just kind of fill in the blanks and take that to your division head and your city or county lawyers. So here's just a quick list of some of our NC DEACS contacts. If you've not had the chance to meet Carol Abkin and Tara Natras yet, they are our two newest employees. They came to us from, they were interns, both of them, before they came on full time. So they're kind of heading up the local government program. Stoked to have them both on board. These are some of the other people we may run into. Tommy and David were accidentally cut off, and I just noticed that. So Tom Rhodes and David Hanch, don't forget that you can reach out to them. All right, from there, we're going to turn it over to Joe Fitzpatrick from Wake County to talk about the NC SWAO. I think you're muted, Joe.
There we go. That's better. All right. So I got the glitch out of the way for everybody else. So good morning, everyone. As Mike said, I'm Joe Fitzpatrick, the waste or recycling and compliance coordinator with Wake County, but I am not here to talk about Wake County today. They asked me here to talk about the North Carolina Solid Waste Enforcement Officers Association, who they are, and how, as an organization, they can help you build a enforcement program. All right, let's see. Hopefully this mouse works. There we go. So basically who SWAO is. SWAO is a nonprofit organization with more than 100 members across the state of North Carolina. Their focus is on protecting health and the environment by applying and enforcing solid waste statutes and rules. The goal of this organization is to keep their members abreast of developments in solid waste management and providing a platform for their members to help them do their job effectively. Their members include solid waste technicians, administrators, environmental health technicians, code enforcement officers, law enforcement officers, and basically in a wide range of employees across state and local governments that have an interest in solid waste management. So if anyone out there that's joining today or on this session today may want to consider joining if you're not already a member. All right, so this is what SWAO looks like. You may, if you look closely, you may see people you recognize in this picture, but it's my belief that everyone out there is invested in proper management of solid waste and dedicated to keep our community safe and clean, not just members of SWAO. So what, as I said, they're a nonprofit organization. What SWAO does is they have an annual fall conference. They work hard to provide professional development and training opportunities for their members across the state through their, as I mentioned, the fall conference, workshops, facility tours, and pretty much all their training has CEUs available. So if you have, for instance, SWANA certifications or regional health certifications, you can pick up those CEUs. So any local and municipal governments need to consider establishing in-house enforcement programs due to reduced funding of both federal and state programs. Local governments can partner together with his enforcement, and SWAO wants to help your community if you're interested in building an enforcement program. And why solid waste enforcement is important. You know, proper disposal is illegal. Citizens are demanding it. You know, Mike referenced citizens getting involved now, even with when it comes to recycling proper materials. Enhances the substance community, and it protects the health and environment. Sorry for this delay in the slides adjusting here. All right. So as Mike referenced before, you know, it's just an ordinance. General statute in North Carolina allows you to regulate through an ordinance the disposal, as well as appointing staff to watch over that improper disposal, and gives you the authority to appoint enforcement staff. All right. So appointment enforcement staff basically are the complaint handlers tasked with addressing citizen concerns directly. As a result, solid waste enforcement officers can provide the public's improve the public's perception of their local government. They're the ones that are out there that are investigating enforcement and illegal dumping actions. They're also facilitating and overseeing cleanup operations. Sworn officers are often out there addressing roadside litter directly, and then also out there addressing issues with illegal burning. So how an enforcement programs benefit your community. So if you're ready to start enforcement program, so we'll take a look at what you need and what it looks like. So environmental enforcement and public outreach programs go hand in hand, much like any other recycling program or solid waste program. Without an education and outreach program, you won't have much success. So involving enforcement staff and public outreach efforts, the community can learn about the rules and regulations that govern disposal of waste, as well as disposal options for programs that make available. Enforcement staff is often seen operating throughout the community. As a result, this encourages proper disposal by interacting with citizens. Information about local programs and requirements can be disseminated in the presence of an environmental officer, sets the tone for community involvement. So another way it benefits communities, it helps reduce litter. Presence of enforcement staff also helps reduce litter and makes residents more conscious of their disposal decisions. Combined with visible public outreach program, the effect can be dramatic. It helps support cleans-up activities. It can serve as a liaison between local government and state resources. Enforcement staff can help take advantage of programs and resources made available by your state's DOT, any Adopt the Highway program or TARP program that your state may have available. And it also can help develop a relationship between Keep America Beautiful and environmental staff can help establish successful cleanup events. So enforcement staff can also assist your facilities with common issues such as uncovered loads, unsecured loads. An enforcement officer could be positioned to interact with the public and acquaint them with proper methods of transport and disposal. And if your ordinance permits, enforcement action can also be taken for those persistent offenders. Oh, I went too far. Hold on, sorry about that. All right, so if you're ready, in summary, these are what the key components of an enforcement program needs. As referenced before, you have to have a functional solid waste ordinance. Has to be designed to meet the local needs and preferences, has to include enforcement options. You need to have meaningful penalties, otherwise you're just going to have repeat offenders, and also include some civil and criminal enforcement actions. You need dedicated enforcement staff, and as I mentioned before, comprehensive public outreach, and also without the political support and funding, you'll never get that off the ground. So SWAO is committed to assisting members and anyone interested in developing a program. Reach out to either myself or Caleb Sinclair, whose contacts information here. He's the current president of SWAO. With that, I am done, and I will turn it over to our next speaker.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in. Great info. Next, we're going to go to Hurst Renner from Rubicon.
Thanks so much, Mike. Good morning, everybody. I'm Hurst Renner from Rubicon. I am a manager of public policy and smart city partnerships. And really looking forward to spending a few minutes with you all today, discussing how Rubicon is working with municipal government in the smart city space, focused around enforcement of, in today's context, specifically recycling contamination. But first, just to give you an idea of who Rubicon is, in case you're not aware, Rubicon was founded in 2008, and we are a software company in the waste recycling and smart city space. We work both with private companies and with municipal government. I will focus on the municipal government side of the business today. This side of Rubicon was founded about 4 years ago. And since then, we have worked with over 55 cities across the country and globally to roll out technology into their waste and recycling operations. Rubicon's a benefit corporation. A B Corp is a certification that holds companies to a higher purpose. So of course, as a private company, we're looking to generate revenue just like any private company may. However, we also are committed to making a lasting social and positive, sustainable impact in the communities that we work. That brings us to helping municipal government really recognize the full value of their assets, which are these waste and recycling vehicles and their operators that are traveling up and down nearly every city street on a weekly basis. These vehicles, in our mind, can be used as roaming data collection centers, ending wasted time, wasted money, and wasted energy. And the technology that we are implementing with these city government partners is what you're looking at on your screen right now. I'll just quickly give you an idea of what the function is of these pieces of hardware and software. The first is what we call Rubicon Y. It is a GeoTab Go 9 device. The device is plugged into the OBD2 port of a vehicle. It gives things like GPS tracking, some engine telematics. The second, and the more important pieces of hardware and software that I'll focus on today is in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that's called Rubicon X. It's an iPhone or an iPad that goes into the cab of any of these solid waste vehicles. It's taken in and out on a daily basis, and it allows drivers and operators of these vehicles to interact with the device to mark what we call exceptions. These are insights that they are seeing as they're going about their normal operations, but it gives them the ability to collect information on things such as carts not out, carts being blocked, contaminated carts, broken carts, et cetera, et cetera. The idea being that the city is able to provide a higher level of service based on the information that their drivers are collecting. They're doing more than just picking up the recycling in the trash. The third image you see on the screen here is what we call the manager portal. It's a username and password website where all of the data that these vehicles and operators are collecting on a daily basis, it's all housed in the portal. And it's a very powerful tool that involves more than just location of vehicles and whether or not a customer has been serviced or not, but allows for routing and deeper insights into contamination trends in a city, addresses with the most frequently reported contamination issues or exceptions that drivers have logged, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to focus today on the city of Spokane, and I just want to preface this by saying that I could spend hours speaking about this. I'm just going to show you a few visuals of real data that has been collected by operators in the city, and walk you through the process of how the city of Spokane has used Rubicon to further develop and enhance their enforcement programs, specifically around their single stream recycling pickup and services for their customers. What you're seeing on your screen right now is a screenshot pulled from the Rubicon portal that I just spoke about. The use case here is that a driver has been out on his or her route and has noticed that there is contamination in this recycling bin. You can see here, to me, it looks like there is some styrofoam in this cart. The driver has actually used that iPhone or iPad to take a photo of the contaminated cart. Now, in Spokane, there are a few different things that can happen, and it's typically up to the operator to determine what that is. The operator can simply take this photo and mark the address as an exception, and they can leave the cart. Spokane's dispatchers and their 311 service are then able to look up a customer address if they call to complain that their cart wasn't serviced. And they can also, the backend staff is able to access these images to analyze trends to see if there are repeat offenders in the city. If the driver chooses simply to take a photo and go on with their day and not service that cart, the city has this information when the customer calls and says, "What happened here? Wait a minute. You didn't service my cart today." The drivers aren't tagging the bins with an oops tag. They are just moving on with their day after marking an exception. Here are a few more images from the city. These are all images that have been collected, by operators as they're out and about. I ran through the first use case, which is just that a driver snaps a photo and continues on with their day. The other process in Spokane is actually one that involves some billing back to the customer. I think so. Mike and Joe both sort of teed this up, but as citizens become involved in an enforcement program, especially back and forth between their solid waste providers in the city, if that is a municipal government, the city has the ability to use these images, and this is what Spokane is doing, to actually issue fines back to customers in the city. And so the other use case is that a driver takes a photo. They still actually service that address. So regardless of the contamination, they're going to accept the material. But the clerks are then, the 311 clerks in the city are then going to be able to use Rubicon's portal to see at the end of a day a list of addresses where this contamination has been reported. They then use that information to run it through their billing system, which is Enquesta, in order to submit the appropriate fines and levies back to their customers. So this is not in any way a revenue generation stream, but it is a way to recoup some lost revenue based on contaminated material going to the MRF. The last use case here in Spokane is actually the pooling of carts. And Spokane is a unique approach to this, which I really like actually. They don't have a 1, 2, 3 strikes, we're gonna pull your cart for X number of weeks or months. This communication actually happens between the drivers and the driver supervisors. The drivers, as you all know, they know the city better than anybody, and they remember which addresses they've encountered with frequent contamination. And in Spokane, the management staff relies on these drivers in coordination with the actual data that they're collecting to determine when and if a cart should be pulled. And so I think it's a higher level of customer service that Spokane is providing that way instead of a hard and fast rule. Again, there are many ways to do it, which you all know. This is just the way that Spokane is approaching a contamination problem, but by using technology to enhance the process. Outside of just single stream recycling, we work with Spokane in their residential lines of service, their MSW line of service, as well as commercial front load and roll off operations. These exceptions go well beyond simply contaminated or unacceptable material in a cart. Another example I thought I would bring up, just because it shows how Spokane is using technology and enforcement to enhance the service they're able to provide their customers, is by showing you an example of what you're looking at here, which is another screenshot pulled from the portal of an exception that is called just simply extra. And you can see to the right of the screen, you see a green bin. This happens to be yard waste. And then to the left, you see a bunch of these paper bags. The city has done a really great job of having their operators take images of extra material that is either outside of the cart, or if the cart is overflowing, again, to recognize some of this lost revenue that the city wouldn't be able to if they were simply just picking up the material and moving on to the next. So more enforcement around holding their customers accountable, but also still providing that service. So in this example, the driver still serviced this customer, but the customer may not be expecting to receive a fine from the city, in a few weeks, but likely would have, based on the information that the driver was able to collect using the Rubicon system. The last slide I have here is another screenshot from Rubicon's portal. It allows anyone in the city with a login to the portal. It could be a 311 operator. It could be somebody in solid waste services in the recycling division. It allows you to search a particular customer and actually see the address and service history at that specific customer location. So if you're trying to better understand, if you came to my house and I had contaminated my recycling cart 10 times in the past, let's say 6 months, using Rubicon's portal, you can very quickly see the status of current service and historical service. You can see in the middle of this screen, there's a red box that says issue reported. This is an example, an image that I actually showed earlier in the presentation, where a driver had marked that the recycling actually was contaminated. Again, just another way that the city is able to use technology rather than relying on the word of mouth or paper sheets for these things. It speeds up their operation, and it's also, like I said, it's provided for a lot of revenue recovery. The last product that I'll speak to you about today is something I don't have slides on, but I think that Tori will probably speak more about something similar later in her presentation, but it's a product that we call Rubicon View, and it is geared more towards the actual auditing of carts. These are feet on the street folks that are conducting an in-person audit of recycling bins ahead of the recycling trucks. It's an iPad that has very similar exception options to what the drivers of these actual vehicles have. It's focused all around contamination, so the exceptions are more specific to recycling themselves. It could be, it could be diapers, it could be plastic bags, it could be styrofoam. But again, just trying to help cities better understand where they need to focus their enforcement, but also focusing education and furthering education to their customers. That's all I have for you today. And I want to thank CRA and Mike for thinking of me. This was great, and really enjoyed my time. Appreciate it.
Fantastic, Hirsch. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing with everybody. I just want to remind everybody, use your box on the side to enter questions. Use your comment box on the side to enter questions for the end of the presentation. We're already starting to get some fantastic questions. So feel free to add your questions as well. Up next, we've got Molly Yeager from Rumpke Waste. Thanks so much for coming in.
Hi, thanks for everybody having me. North Carolina is one of my favorite places on earth. Fun fact, I actually got married at the beach there. So thanks for having me. Most of you probably aren't familiar with Rumpke at all because we're not in North Carolina or South Carolina as of yet. We're based in Ohio, and I'm going to share a little bit more about our company, but I like to always start out by saying how we're Ohio's recycling leader. We have the most recycling facilities. We have the largest recycling facilities in the state, and we're definitely committed to recycling. So there's a little bit of delay on the mouse click, it looks like. Hold on. Maybe it'll go through. It's not working. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone.
Let me try again, Molly. Hang on.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and advance it for you while I work on it. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Rumpke is a private family-owned and operated company. Again, we're headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have been around since 1932 when our founder actually started the company as a coal delivery business that later morphed into a hog farm that later morphed into the waste and recycling business that we are today. In addition to servicing portions of Ohio, we also service portions of Kentucky, Indiana, and a small portion of West Virginia. We currently operate 11 recycling facilities, mainly in Ohio. We do have one in Kentucky, as well as one in Indiana. We're looking to grow that number. And then we also have 14 landfills throughout our service footprint. If you would go ahead and see if this slide advances. Still not working for me. There we go. So I like to talk about the impact of contamination and why this is important for everybody who does recycling to look at and to help combat. So this day, this is April 10th, 2012, is probably one of the worst days in our company's history. This was our recycling facility in Greater Cincinnati. We had just undergone a $10 million renovation to upgrade all the sorting equipment. It was a state-of-the-art facility at the time. It was housed in an old steel mill that we had recycled. And unfortunately, on this day, it went up in flames thanks to contamination. Ironically, just the day before, I had our local CBS affiliate at our facility to talk about the contamination issue that we have been seeing. And we started to highlight some of the things that we were seeing outside in the pile of things that should not have come to the recycling center to begin with. Things like propane tanks and microwaves. We saw oily rags. Just, you wouldn't believe some of the things that people were putting in recycling containers. And this had started back in 2010. We started a transition at that time from bins, which maybe some of your communities still use, to carts. And when we did this transition, we noticed that we saw an uptick of contamination that made it to the recycling facility. It was a slow transition, but by 2012, it had become a rather large problem and something we were ready to address. Unfortunately, this happened. Now, I always like to share the story that night we came up with a plan that we never missed a beat. None of our recycling customers ever went without service. And we came up with a plan that night to rebuild a bigger and better facility, which is exactly what we did. And one day, I hope when COVID's all said and done, if you ever want to make a trip to Ohio, I'll be glad to show off this $32 million facility that we now have in Cincinnati that is truly state-of-the-art with 6 optical scanners, soon to have robotics, as well as 2 eddy currents that processes 700 tons of recyclables each and every day. But contamination problems persisted even after we built our new facility. Still not working, Mary. You can go ahead and advance that slide for me.
Okay, next time, Molly, try your arrow key. Did you try that?
Yeah. For some reason, it's just not working.
Okay. I gotcha.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So fires, unfortunately, these continue today. Batteries are mainly the culprit that we are seeing, and I think that's a lot to do with mixed messaging. where people see on the battery itself that it should be recycled. Unfortunately, it's just not with their curbside recycling programs. But we've also seen other culprits like full aerosol cans. We have seen propane tanks. All these things have been known to cause fires in the plant. Fortunately, none of them have been as catastrophic as that one from April 10th, 2012. But still, nevertheless, every time one of these facilities has a fire, you know, our minds race back to that day. In addition to fires, we also found that contamination causes problems and challenges meeting end user standards. Specifically, this has been a problem when it comes to paper, with a lot of the fast food containers making its way into the paper mix. That causes a downgrade or sometimes rejection if there's too much. Increased disposal cost because of the increased amount of contamination, because we continue to see a large amount of items that should not go into the recycling bin. That means there is a disposal cost because we have to ship those to a landfill. And then we also have increased maintenance cost. It does cause wear and tear on the machines, on the mini spinning disc that gets tangled up from the plastic bags or textiles or hoses and chains that may come into our plants. So all of this led us to a partnership with the Recycling Partnership, which I'm going to talk about here today. You want to go ahead and try and advance that slide for me, Mary? Perfect. So prior to working with the Recycling Partnership, we had done some outreach on our own. We would do annual advertising campaigns, doing radio ads, TV ads, digital advertising, trying to just reach the message with what things should not go into your recycling bin. We started focusing solely on the plastic bags because you can't get every message out there, and that was our biggest problem, was everybody was putting everything inside their cart inside of a plastic bag. So our drivers had no way of being able to audit that material to see if there were other contaminants in it. So we would focus heavily on those plastic bags, but we've also done some battery campaigns as well. We've done increased education. We actually have an education specialist on our team whose full-time job is to do presentations and to go to schools, as well as to do events, trying just to increase awareness of what you can and cannot recycle. We also do a large amount of tours prior to COVID at our landfills and our recycling facilities, help to bring education to recycling in general. We do media relations, as I mentioned, just the day before that fire, I had our local CBS affiliate out. Well, this is a common thing. We have great relationships with many of our media partners, and they're constantly willing to help spread the word about the importance of recycling and what you can and can't recycle. And then we also have really solid partnerships with our solid waste districts and the municipalities that we service. And something that we've done here in our MRF shed is we've standardized communication so that all of our solid waste districts, all of our cities are all using the same standardized list of acceptable items that have all the same images, all the same language, so that we're all preaching to the same message, so to help cut down on the confusion that is recycling. So let's see if it works, Mary. Maybe still not. Can you go ahead and advance the slide, Mary? So this led to our next, because while all these efforts make the problem dip for a little bit, it didn't fix the problem. So we wanted to work with the Recycling Partnership, who has a great program in place to try to help cull some of this contamination in our recycling. And we partnered with them on several cities. We partnered with them in the city of Fairfield, which is about 14,000 households. The city of Centerville, which is about 11,000 households, and the city of Cincinnati, which is about 80,000 households, but we didn't do the entire city for this test. We did about 20,000. In addition to this, in our other MRF shed in Columbus, we did do some in the city of Columbus, but I wasn't involved in that project, so I can't speak as intelligently on that. So I'm going to focus on the ones in our Cincinnati MRF shed. So if you want to go ahead and move the slide forward, Mary. Actually, can you go back? Sorry. I wanted to point out what we were doing in that picture. As part of the program, what we did is we did audits post curbside collection or curbside audits, and then we did both of them. So we wanted to have a good starting point. We wanted to audit the material coming from these municipalities and see what we're working with, and then measure it afterwards to see if we made any improvements. So we gathered literally tons of material from each of these communities. And then we hand sorted it into 23 different categories. categories of things that we did accept, such as plastic bottles, glass, paper, cardboard, aluminum cans and steel cans, and then common items that we did not want, such as complete bags of bag materials or electronics or batteries or textiles. Shoes had their own category. So we sorted this out into 23 different categories and we measured it because we wanted to know exactly what we were working with in each community. So that's what you're seeing right there. That's a hand audit. This was a process, I will tell you that. We had our teams collect that material. They would take samples when it came into the MRF. So when it got to the tipping floor, we had someone out there taking samples from it. There's a science to it because you didn't want to just take from the middle. You want to take so many from each side of it, so you would have a really good representation of what was in that. And then we actually have a specialized recycling facility right across the street from our other recycling facility where we have a large amount of space. So we store that material and then we hand sorted each one of those. We did have a team not only from us, but the recycling partnership, as well as those cities that we were auditing involved, so that we had all hands on deck. If you will go ahead and advance it now, Mary. After we completed those audits prior, we then have feet on the street, and we use the Rubicon system that Hers also discussed. So our auditors had these phones that were loaded with the Rubicon app, and they were going around. Actually, they went ahead of our drivers, and they were recording what was in the cart and then tagging it if it was full of contaminants. The first one, all of our cities were a little bit hesitant on just leaving the cart at the curb. They wanted to give them first a warning. So we had two different tags there. We had an oops tag and a good try tag. The oops tag was the first offense that said, hey, oops, you have wrong things in here. We took it today, but know that these items don't go in there. And if they still continued the following week to put the wrong item in there, then we left the next tag, the good try tag, saying, hey, we're not going to collect this anymore. You need to fix this, and then your next collection day, we will go ahead and do it. And right now I'm going to focus on Fairfield and Cincinnati because our team did these audits. And in the city of Centerville, they got a group of volunteers to do those audits, which was a little bit more challenging because the volunteer base didn't always show up every day. But in Fairfield and Cincinnati, Rumpke paid for an auditor. It was actually one of our team members. We had several of them that were in charge of this auditing process. And we did this for 5 weeks in Fairfield. It's usually a 4-week program, but because we did the oops tag first, so we gave them a warning first, the recycling partnership recommended doing 5 weeks in total. And then in Cincinnati, we did a 10-week program because they are every other week recycling. If you want to go ahead and advance that slide, Mary. We learned a lot of lessons, and I went out with our auditors on this, and I think there's a lot of good information that was gathered. A lot of people, we did a lot of media relations around this. We wanted people to know that this was going on and what was going on around it. So we had news stories prior to it, we had news stories why it was going on, and we had news stories post. So that was very helpful on it. But I went around with our auditors on several occasions, and several people came out and were talking because they were, they were interested in it, or they received a tag and they wanted to know why. And, we learned that people are just generally confused on what they can recycle. It was very abundantly clear that people just really didn't know that they could recycle. And one of the most interesting things I found as I was going over their oops button or their oops tag with them is I flipped open the lid of their cart and I showed them that it had a list on top of their cart. We have a hot stamp of our acceptable items list on top of the cart. Many of them weren't aware that that list even existed, that they could have checked against that to see what could and could not go in the cart. We also found that curbside communication didn't generate that many phone calls. That was our biggest fear, and it was the municipality's biggest fear that we partnered with, that they were really afraid that they were going to get overwhelmed with phone calls of angry customers just saying, come get my cart. And we did not see that at all. Most people took the tag, they understood what the problem was, and then they fixed it. And that was really great to know. So that was something that I always like to share with any municipality, that, it's not going to generate that many phone calls. Don't be afraid of it. The feet on the street team, we went through a few different auditors as part of this, but they really do need to be passionate. If you have someone that doesn't really care about recycling, they're not going to really look into that cart and see, you know, what's there. And we're not talking about like deep dives into those carts. We're talking about, you know, opening the cart lid up and looking real quick in there and saying, yes, this got contaminants, or no, it looks pretty clean. We didn't just dig through it, so it wasn't a hard one, but you had some that just flipped it open and just didn't do anything with it. So we went through a few different auditors until we found the right one. And then leaving the material at the curb works. It changed habits. Because really what people are doing when they're putting the wrong item into their recycling bin, they're asking a question. They're asking, is this recyclable? And if your drivers pick it up, then you're answering their question. Well, they picked it up, so it must be recyclable. So leaving it at the curb worked. It answered their question differently. It told them, no, it really isn't. Can you go ahead and advance that, Mary? So here were the results. The city of Fairfield, our audit prior to the campaign, we saw a 22% contamination rate. After the intervention and the feet on the street and leaving carts at the curb, when we re-audited afterwards using the same techniques as we did before, we found a 12% contamination rate. So we saw a big decrease there. Centerville had a 19% contamination rate at the beginning of the campaign. At the end of the campaign, 11%. In the city of Cincinnati, it was pretty trashy material. We were at 28%, close to 29% actually contamination rate at the beginning of the campaign, and we were able to get it down to a 19% contamination rate. And actually, we're going to partner with the city of Cincinnati here in the spring. We wanted to do it in the fall this year, but COVID kind of prevented that. But we're going to do the campaign there again. We're going to do a couple different campaigns. One, we want to go in the same area and see if these habits remained, if they stayed the same and we still have that same low contamination rate, or if we went back to their old habits. So we're going to go in there again, and then we're also going to go into a different part of the city. As I mentioned before, there's 80,000 households and we only did 20,000 households. So we're going to try a couple different things with the city of Cincinnati here in the spring to see how well this works. All right, I look forward to your questions. Thanks, Mary.
All right, thanks, Molly. I really do appreciate that. I do want to come in with some breaking news. It looks like there's currently a tie between Snickers and Reese's Cups. It's still too close to call. We'll probably need a recount. So don't forget to vote in your chat box on the side. And don't forget to bring us some more questions. We've got some great questions coming in. So we would definitely like to hear some more from you. We're going to wrap everything up today presentation-wise with Tori from the city of Greensboro. Take it away.
All right. Hi, guys. Like Mike said, I'm Tori Carley with the city of Greensboro. I'm the waste reduction supervisor, and I've been with the city for about 5 years. I did not get the pop-up notification to gain control of the presentation. But apparently I have control now. So Greensboro, North Carolina, we are the 3rd largest city. And one fun fact that you might not have known about the city is that we were the first single stream recycling program on the East Coast. So we were the first community to have carts. And because we have had carts first, we actually never had bins. And so we never had that rejection at the curb with the bins, where the operators could see what was in it and either take it out or not collect it, kind of thing. So some really badly ingrained habits there. And in the picture with the people in it, you can definitely see those early 90s clothes, and that was before some of the other PPE that we have was required. So that's why you're seeing like no hard hats or anything. So our program, we have 90,100 households, every other week collection, and we are municipally operated, so we get to call the shots. Now our contamination rate, I've debated taking this number out of presentations and talks that I do because really it is kind of a shot in the dark at this point. We haven't had a recycling audit in at least 5 years, and as long as I've been here. And we were going to do one in the spring, and we had it, almost, signed on the dotted line, and then COVID happened. So of course it got pushed. But we do have to do one this fiscal year per our contract. We started a tagging program in July of 2018. And one thing that's unique about our tagging program is it's ongoing. We have one recycling inspector that is his full-time job, is recycling inspection and solid waste inspections and enforcement. So the other thing that we utilize, though, is our recycling operators. We do tag with rejection. So if a driver comes by and sees, a piece of wood sticking out or carpet hanging out of a cart, they will tag it with a tablet, and they will then just drive on by. And so we do have a 3 strikes you're out, which it's really 4. So 3 strikes you're out is on a rolling 6-month period. So we will tag somebody. If we tag somebody in January, that tag will actually roll off later in June or July when it's been 6 months. And then to date, we've had more than 12,000. It's probably gone up since I updated this last. More than 12,000 interactions with residents, and that's either with a sticker on a can or a postcard in the mail or talking to someone. So education and policy. We do also have a full-time educator on our staff. The person that was in that position has moved on to another position, and so that position is currently vacant, but we also have COVID going on, so there's been like a total of 3 presentation requests since March. So we are taking our time filling that position. But what I wanted to say about education and outreach is that you can't have education and outreach without a policy to back it up. So we felt like it was really important to frame our program as an education program, but let our residents know that we would be enforcing these rules as well. So like I said, we've had our brown recycling cart since 1992. That's because brown was the cheapest color to buy because it was a mixture of all of the other recycled plastics. So that is a little fun fact. And a lot of residents in our community use their recycling cart as a spare trash can. And if there's a move out, if a new tenant comes into a rental property, we're always dealing with that turnover as well. So we see tons and tons and tons of contamination, and that's why we got started. So we really took this opportunity and we wanted it to be ongoing, not just a 5 or a 10-week campaign. We think those are really valuable, but we wanted this to be ongoing because we have such well ingrained behaviors, and we've got 90,000 households to cover and one person. He's seeing probably 1% of the houses on a given route on any given day. And so our inspector, they have the time to stop. They physically tag a can with a sticker, and then they also track that virtually with a tracking system that we use as well. The drivers, they've got their hopper cams. They're able to see stuff as it falls into the truck behind them, but they can't really get out and get that TV that you see there on the cam. They can't stop and get that out. And so while we can't prevent it from getting to the MRF, we can talk to the residents about it. And so they virtually tag. They don't get out, but they virtually tag, and then we follow up with them with our mailing system that we have. So driver is going to see plastic bags in the recycling, might see stuff sticking out. Lots of air filters. People think that air filters are recyclable for some reason. Lots of wood. We just don't understand these things. So we have the app for the drivers, and this is what it looks like. It's not an app that I recommend, and so I'm not showing the name of the app that we use. It's also not Rubicon. I wish I had Rubicon, but we are working with what we've got. And so drivers are typically using the hopper contamination or the skip cart, and they have the opportunity to select more than one item. So if you know, it's not plastic bags, or if it's not foam or something that's on their screen, if they click hopper contamination or skip cart, they have the ability to select multiple options for what the contamination was, and we're able to see that data later on. The inspector, like I said, you know, they have time to stop and inspect, and we have done additional inspections. So the recycling educator, that's her Lane, and myself went out a lot and talked with residents, but also were feet on the street along with our inspector. And then we have our stickers here is what we use. A lot of communities use hang tags. We chose stickers. They easily come off of the cart, but not too easily. So it's kind of like Goldilocks, just right. So carts are serviced if they have the yellow sticker. And if they get a pink sticker, then the drivers know that they are not supposed to service them. We also do a chalk X on the side of the cart so that if the resident comes out and takes the sticker off, the drivers will still know, and that X will wash off. And then the other thing that we do is the inspectors will also radio the drivers and say, hey, you know, this lid is closed, but 100 Maple Street, you better not collect them because it's gross in there. On all of our communications, we have information about what goes where. So we have the Recollect app is one thing that we use. It is amazing. Residents can search the Waste Wizard, search virtually any item to find out what goes where in the Waste Wizard. And so we put that on all of our communications so that if residents don't know about the app, then they get an oops and they're like, oh no, I didn't even realize this. And then hopefully they see and download the app so that they can use it. GSO Collects is available online and on our mobile devices. So it is an app, and then we have it in our website as well. So the reason that I don't like the app that we use is because of the workflow management. You know, it's as accurate as, you know, your Google Maps or your Maps app. That's fine and everything. It's the back-end management. We have an average of 2 hours a day that we spend processing the data because we are keeping track of all of that in a separate spreadsheet of like how many tags we have every day, who processed the data for the day and how long they spent on it. And you'll see a little bit of that later on. And so this is a screenshot of the system that we work with, and then we have to pull out a Excel file. We have to run it through a macro, which the company was nice enough to make for us because I don't know how to make a macro. But then we process the data. We have to go back into this system to change it. So we change a first violation to a second violation because everything comes in as a first, and the drivers aren't going to remember, oh, you know, 1742 Smith Street had contamination last week. I got to click them as a second this week. No, they have 800 to 1,000 carts that they're collecting every day. And so, you know, we run it through the macro, we get this data out, then we have to pull this data again now that we've updated it. And then we create a report sheet and a mail merge in order to make postcards. And so these are what our postcards look like. We have first, second, and third postcards, yellow, orange, and pink. And they are direct. Some residents like to try and convince me that we need to be nicer. But, you know, we are direct. This is an education program, but we're not going to send a nice, please recycle right kind of postcard to, you know, people in one area of town and then a, hey, you're doing the wrong thing in another area of town. We have one this is unacceptable. If you continue to contaminate, your recycling cart will be removed for non-compliance with our recycling guidelines. And that gets people's attention. We don't get a ton of calls. We get, you know, 1 or 2 a week probably. And they come into us, and our inspector or myself handles that. And I make a lot of friends that way, because people call in and they're like, and I talk to them and I talk them down, and then they are like, oh, okay, well, I understand now. So our number one issue is plastic bags by far, and so that's why you see it on that card. It's not our only issue, but I found that the labels that are sized for file folders are a great way for us to put that information on the card. And so if it's plastic bags, we don't have to put a sticker on it. And if it's something else, then we have yard waste, we have construction materials, we have holiday decor, because we see lots of string lights at various points throughout the year, whether it's Halloween or Christmas or other holidays. And then when we remove carts, we leave this on their door so that they know why it was removed. And I have gone out and removed carts. You'll see some data in the slideshow later on that is like, wow, that's a lot of removed carts. But we did have some issues removing carts for a while just because of staffing. Some of those staff have retired now, and so we're trying to get back on track and get new staff in, but we needed to play catch up. And so I went out and removed a lot of carts for about a month. And, you know, I would run up and, you know, put the thing on the door and hope nobody was home kind of thing, because I didn't want to get yelled at, because some people did yell at us. But then other people, they were like, what are you talking about? Like, take it, I don't care. And so, okay, that's fine. If you don't want to recycle, our policy is it's better for the recycling to end up in the garbage than for the garbage to end up in the recycling. And if you're not going to recycle right, I'm sorry, we're just not going to let you have a second cart. You can have a green cart and a brown cart. If you want 2 green carts, you have to purchase the second green cart. So when they do call us though, and they say, if we do get anybody that calls in and says like, I know what's recyclable, I am an avid recycler, I keep up with what you guys do, and I know that I did not have plastic bags in my recycling. We'll go in and we'll look at the data, and if somebody was close to a property line when they tagged it, or if it was a cul-de-sac, and you know, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, you know, we err on the side of the resident. And I will, in a heartbeat, take a tag off of a resident and, you know, let them, you know, of course, yeah, that's fine. We'll talk about it, you know, and if they think it was their neighbor, then I'll sometimes just change the address and move it to the neighbor, and I'll send the neighbor a postcard because, and then I don't ever hear from the neighbor. That never happens. So usually if somebody says like, yeah, it wasn't, I know it wasn't me, it was probably my neighbor, then if it's clearly that if it is clear that it was probably their neighbor, then we will reissue that education notice. And that's what this slide is talking about. And this is, you know, we do get phone calls, we do get letters. I've gotten several letters from residents that, you know, they include the notice that they got, and they're like, you need to take this off. And, you know, if they don't provide a phone number or any other way for me to communicate back with them, I have to send them a letter back. It's that's only happened a couple of times. But then the other way, you know, people do get online and they are not nice about it. But we always come back to, this is an education program. This is why it's important. People, you know, have to climb into machines and cut it out by hand, and it's not a safe job. And usually when I say that, they're like, oh, okay. And so this is what our daily tracking looks like. So we keep a track of how many notices that we send, a first, a second, a third, how many removed carts that we have every day, and then we track those hours as well. And so we are up to quite a few notices sent. But this is really interesting data for us. We've got every other week recycling, And this is this year, so fiscal year 2021 and or 2020, 2021. And so far this year, our Thursday red is in the lead for the worst recycling contamination tags. But as you can see, Monday and Tuesday are generally doing a little bit better than Thursday and Friday. And that's expected with the layout of our community. And it's not news. However, it's good to be data driven and people informed. And so we know that those people also on Thursdays and Fridays don't have our GSO Collects app, because I can see that data as well. So we're working on potentially doing a campaign to encourage more downloads of that GSO Collects app. And then I'll quickly run through, this was our first year. So as you can see, tons of first violations, not as many of second, third. And of those 102 carts that got taken away, 7% called in and said, I want to get my cart back. And they came in, signed a pledge to get their cart back, and got their cart back. So 7% of people that got their carts taken away wanted it back. And you know, the other 93% just said, meh, I don't need a recycling cart. So the second year, you know, we're seeing a lot more removed carts, because we had the first year of 6 months of, you know, the first year of data that we were still working off of. So we still sent out way more first contamination notices than the others combined, but we did take away more carts. But not all of the carts that were tagged to be removed were actually physically removed because of the staffing that I talked about. And that was really hard to work through, because we didn't know why it wasn't happening. And the work orders were getting closed, but the work wasn't actually being done. And so we have now worked to remedy that. And so especially on this one, where you see that the third is high, or the third is lower than the removed cart, part of that is because there have been some houses that have literally been tagged 12 times. And so, you know, they're first, second, third, and then remove, and it was never removed. And so that's why you're seeing more removed carts than third violations there. So moving forward, I would love to improve our data management, subscribe to a new company with a better workflow. We're still not at a place where we're doing that just yet, just because of finances. I've been working on it for a while, but still haven't convinced anyone that we need to spend the extra money for a better system. And then I'd love to have more inspectors. That would be the best. And then the last thing that I am desperately in need of is an audit, because right now I'm just flying blind. And so hopefully we will get the audit back, and it will be like, hey, you know, 5% contamination, and I'll like have a party. But if it was, you know, anything less than 20, I'm going to be super, super happy about it. And I just love this picture, because, you know, we're all in this together. And I love to see what all of these different communities are doing with their tagging program. And if this is something that you feel like you want to do in your community, shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to share an overview that I put together for our tagging program. That's all I have.
Awesome, Tori. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I really do appreciate you coming in. So let's go ahead and bring all of our presenters back on camera if we can. I want to take a second to remind everybody that this webinar has been recorded, and we will post this on the CRA website in a few days. You'll be able to get this. You will also be able to get copies of the PDF versions of the different presentations, so that you can share those around the office. Real quick before we get started, I want to take a second to thank CRA. They do so much for recycling. They're absolutely great partners. I know we really appreciate everything that they do. So thank you for making this whole presentation possible. So I'm going to go back. I've got a few questions that I wanted to bring to the group. Let's see. Okay. Could the panelists comment about pros and cons of utilizing operators to track and tag either electronically or not electronically?
I can start off with that one. One of the cons is that a lot of our operators are good old country boys that still have flip phones. And they, don't want to add something new to what they do. And so it takes a lot of work to get them to participate. We did change our expectations within, how we do merit increases for our operators to include participating in tagging for our recycling operators. And then there were some operators that were moved off of recycling to other collection lines of business, whether it was garbage or yard waste or whatever. They were moved because they weren't participating.
I would second what Tori said. They just aren't interested in doing it. I said when we had our auditor, we found that the more passionate they are about the cause, the better work that they did. And we found that the drivers just aren't very passionate about it, and they just don't want to add anything else to their agenda. We've always had a tag, if you will, that they could always use if they saw contamination or something that shouldn't be there, but it's very rarely used. I've had many people say there's nothing they're telling me it couldn't be recycled, so I had no idea. And we have it for the trash too, and they won't use it there either. So having a separate auditor is just far more effective.
Yeah, I would say one of the pros is, and something that we've had some experience in, is on the positive side, is messaging to operators that this is not supposed to be sort of a gotcha tool or a tool that is supposed to add a significant amount of time to their workflow, but actually something that can enable them to reduce the number of go backs they're doing, and provide some accountability for themselves that to the management staff that they are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. They did go by this address. The cart was contaminated. I took a photo to prove that, and this is why we're not going to go back and service that customer this time around. So I think I agree totally with all of the cons, but messaging helps to shape the pros.
Excellent. All right, we've got another question. What is the best way to work with your MRF to understand contamination and to find out if your enforcement efforts are working?
I mean, we own our own MRFs, so we work with our own MRFs. So it's not really a problem for us. I know, Tori, you are in a little different situation, so you might be the best one to answer that one.
Yeah, we've had conversations with our MRF, and they've kind of been singing the same song for the last 5 years. And so they haven't reported a decrease in contamination. However, I know from several trusted sources that when they look at contamination, they're looking at the whole MRF and not just what our inbound material is. And so that's why I am really, really looking forward to our audit, because I have not been able to get what I think is a statistically valid contamination rate. And so I don't really have a good answer other than do an audit. However, it's really hard to do an audit unless it's in your contract. And so if you can put it in your contract, then that would be the best thing.
Excellent. Okay, so in programs where the driver still takes the cart if it's contaminated, are you concerned about the contamination from one cart contaminating the whole load? How do you balance that?
I can start off with that one. So really it's a judgment call for our drivers, if they are going to skip a cart or if they're going to tag the cart for contamination, but still collect it. And, that's if they can see it. And so, another thing about it is the operators aren't getting out and lifting the lid. And so, if the operator, doesn't see anything because the lid is closed, but they pick it up and they see junk falling in, well, they can't do anything about it. But we're going to do our best to make sure that the resident knows, like, do not do this. I'm like my mother, like, do not do this. So with our inspector, though, it's also a judgment call for him. It's not just what you see, it's also what you smell. And then, if there are black bags in the recycling, we've instructed our drivers to skip it. If there is bagged recycling, but our inspector, can kind of tell from the weight of the cart, because if you pull on the cart, you can kind of feel how heavy it is. Then, okay, maybe it's okay. And so, we'll put the tag on the residents, and or the sticker on to let them know that they don't need to bag it. I hope that answers your question. It's very subjective based on who's doing it, because when me and Lane and David, our inspector, were going out, it was like, it was like the three bears. Like, David would go too easy on people because he wanted them to, not get discouraged and not recycle them. Lane would go too, crazy, like, hey, don't have, these little tiny pieces of paper, and it would, like, confuse residents. And then, like, I was kind of trying to, like, be in the middle, like, come on, guys, like, it's okay, like, not too hard, not too soft, when you're trying to tag these residents. So I think, that's a constant like conversation based on what you see.
I think we had something similar too, where why we did leave one warning tag, we did have a rule that if you came up to something that was going to be, detrimental to the operations, you have permission to go ahead and leave it behind that week. I actually should suggest a third tag, the all hell no tag, and nobody else would go for it. But I do think that would be helpful, because there are some things that people are putting in that, like the batteries or a propane tank, that people really need to understand that this is not just bad, it's really bad to put it in here.
Fantastic. All right, we've got another question. What are other technologies that someone might explore to assist with enforcement?
I think I probably covered the Rubicon side, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy to speak more about it, but I can also, kick it over on the municipal side to Tori, I guess, to discuss others. But yeah.
I'm not aware of a ton of tagging capable apps that would computate the data, because, like, what we get is we get the tag, but everything comes in as a first violation. And so I would recommend Rubicon. If I have looked at their system, and I'm just going to unabashedly say that I love it and I wish that I had the money for it, but it's too expensive right now. So I would use Rubicon if I could, but I'm not going to recommend the company that I use. And if you want me to tell you who it is, I can tell you who it is, but I was going to be nice and not. It's Mobile 311. I hate it. It's terrible. Joe, do you know of any communities that are using any kind of, who's doing paper and pencil and who's doing Rubicon and something in between?
That I don't know. I think Raleigh was looking at something new. I'm not sure where they are. I think they were piloting a new program. So I don't know if anybody from Raleigh is joining and can chime in with a comment.
I think Asheville launched with Rubicon. Is that correct, Hurst? And they used to have Mobile 311.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So if that doesn't tell you, I don't know what will.
All right, well, we had a comment that I wanted to share with everyone. let's see. I appreciate the candid comment from the Rumpke representative. I've never thought of looking at what's in the recycling cart as a resident asking, is this recyclable? Thanks for helping me reframe this situation. That's a really cool point. I wanted to share that with everybody.
Oh, I appreciate the feedback.
Awesome. All right, another question. If you can't utilize technology, is it even possible to get a handle on contamination?
I think so. I know that Carrie did that for several years. I think Bob, chime in. I know you're here. I think Carrie did paper and pencil for a while, and then they would pull it in and pull in the sheets of the contamination and put it into an Excel sheet and sort it that way. And if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do, and do it on a small scale. Pick one neighborhood with 100 houses, and just walk around there and do it for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, or 2 or 3 collection cycles in a row. And that one, even if it is such a small sample size, you could then repeat that over and over and over again.
I mean, technology makes it easier, but I think it is doable to do without technology. It just improves the whole process. It gives customer service the ability to look in there and know why the cart was missed right then and there. It just improves the process, but I think you could do it without. But as Tori said, might want to start a little small.
Fantastic.
I know for us, just, we don't have, Wake County doesn't have any curbside that we do, but we have drop-offs, and we've just gone and, tried to focus on, all right, what's the main thing? 2 years ago, it was recyclables being bags. So we made an approach to just get those bags out and put signs out, and sandwich board signs that in order for people to get to the bin, they had to basically walk around that sign. So they got the message, or they're going to trip over it.
Fantastic. All right, another question. I've heard someone mention pointing out that there was a sticker on the cart itself and that people weren't aware of it. Have you ever done studies to show whether a cart-based messaging system is effective in contamination reduction? It seems to me that having the message directed to the source should be the #1 directive.
We haven't done any official studies, but we have noticed that for us, our cart manufacturer doesn't charge us anything additional to have that on there. So it's a no-brainer to go ahead and put it on there. But the reality is most people aren't making the decision of what goes in that cart at the curb. They're making that decision in their kitchen or their bathroom. So having messaging inside the house is, in my opinion, equally or more so important than having it on top of the cart. But we haven't done any official research in that, just my unofficial walking around with our auditors and talking to people.
We don't have any kind of sticker or hot stamp on our carts. Kind of thankful that we don't, because we did remove glass from curbside recycling last year and moved it to drop off only. And so if we did have that hot stamp of paper, plastic, metal, glass, then we would have kind of been cemented into that. And it's been really beneficial to have glass out of our curbside for a couple of reasons that if anybody wants to talk about offline, we can. So, but I do at my residence in Kernersville have a sticker, and I did notice when they put it on. But I'm also the crazy recycling girl that lives in Kernersville, so of course I would notice. So that's very anecdotal.
Also, I'm also gonna throw in, I used to work with the city of Greensboro years ago, back when we had Flintstone cars and were using rock tablets to write everything. But I would inspect the ABC recycling, and I found that I would cut out strips on neon pink paper that would have specific instruction because I knew the common contamination. I would go out with packing tape, put it on there, stick it on there, and found that was, old school, that kind of helped the situation. So
yeah, we do have neon stickers, and our glass, our ABC glass collection also utilizes the neon stickers as well. And we found that it's been something that catches people's attention. And even if it's raining, like it doesn't stick to the cart, but our inspectors will take it and wrap it around the handle and stick it to itself like on a corner. And you can't help but see it because you got to go out there and get your cart and it's on the handle. So the only downside to the stickers is that sometimes they do fall off the carts if it is wet, or the residents will pull it off the cart kind of thing. So that kind of stinks.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got some more questions. What I'm super stoked about is the attendee list is still hanging in. So this is really cool. Thanks for everybody for sticking around and talking. So the questions come up. Are you aware of any successful incentives for recycling right? And I think we're running quickly out of time, so we'll make that one the last question.
I can speak to, we tried the recycle bank approach back in the day, and all the municipalities that did that have gone away from it because they found that it wasn't working, that it did not provide the incentive, because really to get people to recycle and to recycle right, it has to be, something they believe in. That's what it comes down to. And I think all the research proves that. So no, I'm not aware of any incentive.
Yeah, I would say that we're all kind of recycling evangelists. We need to win them over. And in order to do that, if you have to get their attention with a nasty gram, then you get the opportunity you get yelled at for a minute, but then, you talk to them, and, 99% of the people that I talk to come over to our side. So win them over to the light side and don't let them be on the dark side.
Awesome. So, all right, I think we are officially out of time. We may have even run over a minute or so. Thanks to CRA, thanks to all of our speakers, and thanks to everyone else for tuning in. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.